Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. Guys, it was a crazy Saturday in the NHL, and we have a lot to talk about. We had a couple of matinee games. We'll get those out of the way first, and we'll move later into the evening into some of the night games that were honestly a little bit underwhelming. So we're going to go over all of those games right now. So we're going to start off with the matinee games. We had two on the East Coast, 1 o'clock Eastern start times. We have the New York Rangers heading up to Ottawa to take on the Ottawa Senators. Alexander Georgiev gets the start for the Rangers, and Matt Murray getting the start for the Senators. I was honestly expecting this to be a pretty high-scoring game. Both these goaltenders have not been the best to start this season. So I was expecting a pretty high-scoring affair. Tonight, the Ottawa Senators, they kind of met that expectation early. 41 seconds into the game, Nick Paul gets on the board yet again. That's his second goal in 2 games, his second of the season from Stützle and Connor Brown. It is 1-0 Senators early in this one, and it looks like the Senators are going to have a pretty solid game. Now, things got pretty physical throughout this game. It was highlighted early on, though, Jacob Trouba and Brady Tkachuk dropping the gloves and having a little tussle. I thought it was a great fight between the both of them. It was good to see. It was good to see Tkachuk back in his form. Even at the end of last season, the Senators were losing games, out of the playoffs. Who was the one guy on the team that was still fighting, agitating the opponent? It was Brady Tkachuk, and we're seeing him kind of continue that this season. Like I said, a very physical, aggressive game throughout. It really didn't disappoint. Anytime there was a puck battle in front of the net, the puck was blown, somebody was digging in the goalie's glove, giving a little face wash, snowstorm, whatever, there was something going on in the crease. It was a great back and forth game. We saw Nick Paul and Sammy Blais get into a fight in the third period. And then, it's one of those things. Ottawa outshot the Rangers 28-26 in this game. You could tell that this was another game where the Senators had a lot of momentum, a lot of things going their way. The second period, we didn't see any goals. It took the third period. So from the first minute of the first period to all the way to the first minute of the third period, so almost 2 full periods of hockey, we didn't see a goal. Josh Norris, again, getting on the board. I talked about this. With Brady Tkachuk coming back in the lineup, you're going to see guys like Norris, Batherson, those are his line mates, guys like Stützle, Connor Brown picking up points because of Tkachuk back in the lineup. And there you go. There's Josh Norris' second goal in 3 games and his second of the season. Now, things get interesting in the third, late in the third. Matt Murray goes down with an injury in the final 7 or 8 minutes left of the game. And the Rangers get a power play. And Chris Kreider, his 4th of this season, a great shot, a great tip in from Chris Kreider. His typical in front of the net, deflecting it in goal. Chris Kreider's 4th of the season on the power play from Panarin and Zibanejad. And the Rangers cut the lead to 2-1. Just a couple minutes later, not even a minute later, Ryan Lindgren gets his first of the season from Adam Fox and Chris Kreider. That's his second point of the night. And the Rangers have tied the game just like that, within a minute. It was 2-0 Senators. Looked like they were going to cruise to a victory. Matt Murray gets injured. The Rangers scored 2 goals. And then Barclay Goodrow scores again 2 minutes and 5 seconds later from that second goal. Barclay Goodrow, his second of the season. It's a tip-in goal, and the New York Rangers would win this game just like that. Now, if I told you going into the third period of this game that Matt Murray would not have given up a goal and the Senators were in control, would you have believed me? Probably not. If I also told you that, would you believe that the Rangers would end up winning that game? Probably not. But things ended up going their way. Kind of like the Leafs game. They maybe got a little bit outplayed at points. They got outshot. But at the end of the day, they won the hockey game. Got to give credit to Gerard Gallant and the Rangers just finding a way to win a hockey game. So kudos to the Rangers. A big, big win for the Rangers in a game that they probably shouldn't have won. They're at 1-1 to start the season, and Ottawa 2-3 to start their season. So things have definitely not been going their way recently. The Ottawa Senators, like I said, outshot them 28-26. Face-off 60% for the Senators, 40% for the Rangers. 40 penalty minutes in this game. A lot of power plays, but not really a lot of goals overall. Now, going into the second matinee game, we got the Calgary Flames heading down to Washington. A big test for the Flames. A team that I really don't know how good of a pulse they have on this team. They've played a couple of cupcakes and games that maybe they should have won, but lost close. That game against Anaheim. So Dan Vladar against Vitek Vanacek is the beginning of this game. Those are your two starters. Andrew Mangiapane, Elias Lindholm got 2 goals in that first period. His 4th and 5th of the season. It's 3-0 Calgary at the end of 1. And that was all it took for Vitek Vanacek. Vanacek pulled after the first period, and we would see Ilya Samsonov take over from there. Lindholm wouldn't be done. Lindholm would score another goal in this game later on, but the Washington Capitals made this an interesting game. The second period, it wasn't terribly great for the Calgary Flames. They definitely allowed Washington to come back. It's a 3-goal second period. Evgeny Kuznetsov, 4th of the season. Martin Fehervey, congratulations, his first NHL goal. He's been playing with the Capitals a little bit last season, finally gets his first goal. And Alexander Ovechkin, his 5th of the season, in the final 2 minutes of that period, ties it. No goals in the third period, a pretty tight game. And Elias Lindholm gets the hat trick, his 6th of the season, his 3rd of the game. And the Calgary Flames come up with a huge victory on the road in Washington. A big game for the Calgary Flames, and it just kind of showed you what they can do. Washington went 0 for 4 on the power play tonight. Another night where the Caps power play struggled. Calgary is 2-1-1 on the season. Washington, despite the loss, still has not gone a game through the first 5 games of the season. They have picked up at least a point. They are 3-0-2 to start this season. Now we get to one of the later matinee games. The Anaheim Ducks head up to the state of hockey to take on the Minnesota Wild. John Gibson and Cam Talbot start in between the pipes for this one. It was a pretty high-scoring affair early in this game up in Minnesota. A back-and-forth game. It was a very entertaining game, to say the least. And it was just one of those games where maybe we're seeing this magic in Minnesota. It looks legit. It looks like this is a legit Minnesota team that can actually be a real contender, not only in the Central Division, but in that Western Conference, just in general. So we're going to give some love here to the Minnesota Wild because it's well-deserved. Now, the Anaheim Ducks have actually played quite well. But this game, again, the Ducks have done this recently. They start the game off really well. Rickard Rakell, his 3rd of the season, just over a minute into the game. But the Minnesota Wild in that first period were relentless. They didn't give up. Brandon Duhaime, his first NHL goal, 7 minutes into the game, a deflection, and Duhaime gets his first in the big leagues. Congratulations there. Jared Spurgeon, some defensemen getting on the goal column for the Minnesota Wild. His first of the season. It's 2-1 Minnesota, just like that, halfway into the first period. Troy Terry would get a weird tip-in goal to cap off this period. It's a tie game, his 2nd of the season. The second period was still interesting. Rickard Rakell and John Merrill exchanged goals in that period. Rakell's 2nd of the game, his 4th of the season. No goals in the third period, a pretty tight checking third period. And Ryan Hartman, the final minute of overtime, his 2nd of the season, and the Minnesota Wild magic continues. The Minnesota Wild find a way to get a win. Minnesota, though, despite an 0-4 on the power play, they get the win. Anaheim goes to 2-3-1 on the season. Minnesota, still a perfect undefeated record, no blemishes yet. They are 4-0 to start the season. A big 3-4 victory in the state of hockey for the Minnesota Wild. Now we move on back into the Metropolitan Division. This is a tough division. It's becoming pretty clear. So as we take a look at this game, we've got The Carolina Hurricanes heading up to Columbus. This is a good test for the Blue Jackets, who have actually looked pretty good to start their season. This would be a big test for them as the Hurricanes come into town. A 1-loss Blue Jackets, a 0-loss Carolina Hurricanes. We were going to be in store for a good hockey game in this one. Freddie Anderson gets the start for the Hurricanes. Joonas Korpisalo gets the start in this one for your Blue Jackets. Carolina got up 2-0 in this game early. It was 2-0 Carolina, and that was the end of the first period. It was one of those things where it was kind of a buzzkill for the Blue Jackets, and it set the tempo. I've talked about this a lot to start the season. When you go down in that first period, you have a really bad period. It is so hard to come back because you have to think, right? Hypothetically, if it's an even game the rest of the way, you don't score goals, they don't score goals, you still lose that game 2-0, even if it's 1-0, right? So you have to be better than the other team for long enough where you could come back and ultimately win the game. That's asking for a lot, especially when you go down 2-0. But there was some good things. Jesper Fast, his third of the season. Vincent Trocheck got a goal, his first of the season for the Hurricanes. A power play goal to end that first period. The second period, things got a little interesting. Again, back and forth. Boone Jenner, the new captain of the Blue Jackets, his fourth of the season on the power play from Voracek and Laine. So we're seeing those guys pick up points. Jordan Staal gets his first of the season, a power play goal. So 2 power play goals exchanged in the second. We stay tied, or we stay at 3-1, Carolina after 2. The third period, Sebastian Aho, his third of the season. Trocheck, his second of the game. Aho's goal ended up being a power play goal, making it 4-1, and then Trocheck makes it 5-1 with a goal late in regulation, his second of the game, second of the season, and the Hurricanes come away with this victory. Vincent Trocheck gets the first star of the game, Freddie Anderson getting the second of the game. A great game overall for the Carolina Hurricanes, just taking care of business, and that's what they had to do. They go 4-0 to start the season, and the Blue Jackets slipping a little bit. They're 3-2 now to start the season, which is still good, but we're starting to see them go back to that form that, maybe that 3-0 start may have been just a little bit of a lightning in the bottle. So we'll see what happens the rest of the way, but we're seeing a little bit of mortality here from Columbus. So now we had an interesting game up in the Atlantic Division. The Detroit Red Wings going up to Montreal. You knew the Canadiens and their fans would be salivating and drooling all over themselves at the thought of a win. This is a team that is beyond just being backed into a corner in an alleyway trying to fight their way out. They are way beyond that at this point. And the Montreal Canadiens, this was a big game. And considering how the game started, you have to give a lot of credit to the comeback from the HABS. So we'll get to that. So the Montreal Canadiens, the storyline going into the game, obviously the HABS being 0-5 to start the season. Just no gas in the tank to start the year. You have Thomas Greiss and Jake Allen getting the starts. And an interesting thing for the Red Wings, Filip Hronek was scratched for tonight's game. I wasn't expecting that. And like I said, the 0-5 start for the HABS. So early in this game, it was Dylan Larkin getting a power play goal just over 5 minutes into the first period. His second of the season, and you would think, here we go. The Red Wings that first goal is just enough, and they're going to deflate the building, and they're going to, it was almost like the Habs were as fragile as glass. You get that first goal, and you get in their head, and they're thinking, here we go again, we're going to lose. Except they didn't do that tonight. They fought back. By the end of the first period, Ben Chiarot, his first of the season, ties the game at 1. Mike Hoffman, his first as a Montreal Canadien, a power play goal 2 minutes later. And it's 2-1 Montreal. That ends up being the game-winning goal there by Mike Hoffman in the first period. Christian Dvorak, this was the night of first. Christian Dvorak, his first as a Montreal Canadien. And the Montreal Canadiens go up 3-1, 3 minutes into the second period. Matthew Perreault would get a natural hat trick. He would score his first of the season, his first as a Montreal Canadien, his second of the season. Just at the halfway point of this game, Thomas Greiss would get pulled at that point at a 5-1 lead for the Habs. Like I said, Grice leaves the game. Nedeljkovic comes in. We didn't see any more goals after that until an empty netter with less than 8 minutes left in regulation. Matthew Perreault caps off the hat trick. He scores a natural hat trick, an empty netter, and the Montreal Canadiens, they were singing Ole halfway into this game, and they didn't stop until the end of this game. And I was kind of that person early. I'm thinking, all right, guys, you're 1-4. Like, chill out for a minute. But then I remembered, this is Montreal. This is Montreal. And I'm not saying that to be facetious. I'm being honest here that they needed this win so badly. Just so badly. And for the players on that team in Montreal, I know it's not all their fault. So just to see them get that win over a pretty good Detroit Red Wings team, I mean, to not see Tyler Bertuzzi get on the board or one of those guys, I think that's a win for the Canadiens, and they were just able to pull away and just not relinquish that lead. Once they went up 2-1, you could just tell they were like, nah, we're not giving this one up tonight, and you have to give credit to them. Obviously, Perreault, a Quebec native, scoring a hat trick. It's great stuff. At the end of the day, the Red Wings go 2-1 on the season, and the Montreal Canadiens can finally get rid of that goose egg in the win column. They are now 1-5 through their first 6 games of the year. A lot of stuff going on in Montreal. It's going to be a long season, but this is maybe a bright spot for what was a tough start for the Habs. This was probably the game of the night in terms of skill level, in terms of prestige of teams. You have the Colorado Avalanche heading down to Tampa Bay after a second of a back-to-back in Florida. They have to play the Tampa Bay Lightning, the defending Stanley Cup champs. Not an easy stretch here for the Avalanche. Darcy Kuemper gets the start against Andrei Vasilevskiy, so we're seeing best on best in this one. The Tampa Bay Lightning wearing their black ice jerseys. I love seeing that. I hope to pick up that jersey at some point. But man, this Lightning team always plays well in that jersey. And we had a great hockey game tonight. This was one of the better games tonight because we saw the Montreal Canadiens game. It was 6-1. You kind of knew who was going to win. But this was not the case. Gabe Landeskog, halfway into the first period, his second of the season, the captain scores, making it 1-0 for the Avalanche. In the second period, we saw Matthew Joseph and Mikko Rantanen exchange goals. So it's 2-1 Colorado after 2. Steven Stamkos, the big captain, gets on the board, his 4th of the season, a tip-in goal early in that third period. But Nathan MacKinnon, he gets on the board, a power play goal, the only power play goal of this game from Makar and Landeskog. MacKinnon gets the monkey off his back, his 1st of the season. And the Tampa Bay Lightning doing what they do. John Cooper pulling the goaltender very early, and it pays off for the Tampa Bay Lightning this time around. Braden Point, his 2nd of the season. A great shot by Braden Point right at the top of the circle. Great release, puts it right past Kuemper, and we are tied at 3. This game would go to overtime. A great back-and-forth overtime. Rantanen getting robbed by Vasilevskiy. And we go to a shootout. And a pretty long shootout, in fact. And this thing took 12 shooters. And Cale Makar got it done at the end of the day. The Colorado Avalanche come up with a huge victory on the road in Tampa Bay. And they find a way to win one on the road, a 4-3 victory. Maybe this is the turning point here for the Avalanche season. A huge win for them. They go 2-3 on the season. Tampa Bay, don't look now, but the Bolts are 2-1 to start their season. Very interesting. A great goalie showcase between Kuemper and Vasilevskiy. Great back and forth game. This was an entertaining one. If you didn't get to see that one, make sure to check out the highlights. It was an absolutely amazing hockey game from really, throughout this game. Again, there really wasn't one point in this game where it was like, you just knew this was going to be a great hockey game, and we really got that tonight. Speaking of another great hockey game, it was maybe a little bit less goal scoring, but the Buffalo Sabres heading down to New Jersey. This was going to be kind of a, who can sniff the other one out better in the eastern side of the conference, because now you have the Buffalo Sabres and the Devils, two teams trying to find their way out of the bottom in a rebuild. and they both played really well to start the season. Both teams were 2-1, or no, Buffalo was 3-1 coming into this one. New Jersey was 2-1 coming into this game. So you had some pretty good teams coming into it. Dustin Tokarski gets the start for the Sabres. And guys, this was the storyline going into the game. Nico Daws, the third-round pick back in the 2018 NHL draft of the New Jersey Devils, the goaltender, getting his first NHL start. As Mackenzie Blackwood's placed on the injured reserve list, it allows another guy to step up, and that is Nico Daws. A lot of excitement around him. I mentioned him in my, I think it was the preseason, season preview on the New Jersey Devils. I talked about Nico Daws. Make sure to check that out. And we saw it on display here tonight. It was a pretty interesting start to the game. Buffalo's Dylan Cousins, his first of the season. He's been scratched a little bit. Hasn't had a great start to his season. He gets an early goal in the first period. A big one there for the Sabres just to give them some momentum. A solid game from both goaltenders. Dustin Tokarski kind of left for dead. He ends up having a great start to the season in 2 games now for Tokarski. And Nico Daws, I mean, this kid, you wouldn't have expected, if you were at the game and you didn't know this was his first NHL game, you wouldn't have noticed. He looked really calm, really composed in between the pipes. He played great tonight and gave the Devils a legitimate chance to win this hockey game. Nico Hischier in the third period, his first of the season, the captain getting a big one to tie this game at 1. A power play goal for the Devils. What is that? The CSENG power play. It paid off tonight for the Devils. The New Jersey Devils, I talked about this the last time they were in overtime against the Blackhawks, showing a lot of poise and confidence. And I'm not going to discredit the Sabres because Dahlin has shown that a lot so far in overtime in their games. But man, the Devils this is a team that it's next man up mentality. Oh, we don't have Jack Hughes? Oh, okay. Well, Pavel Zacha, snipe the overtime winner, and the Devils are 3-1 to start this season and beat a pretty good Buffalo Sabres team. Not really what we were expecting, but a really good game for the New Jersey Devils and the Buffalo Sabres. I have to give credit to both sides. A well-deserved point for both teams. They had to fight it out in overtime for that second point. The Buffalo Sabres fall to 3-1-1 on the season, but who's really complaining? I mean, the Sabres record right now is probably the opposite of what we thought it would be. Probably would have thought it would be something like 1-3-1. They're doing really well right now. And the Devils, man, 3-1. I like what I've seen from the Devils, and Zacha getting on the board, getting some depth scoring. I like what I've seen here from the New Jersey Devils, and if Nico Daws plays like this, things are going to get interesting in New Jersey in terms of the goaltending, and great stuff from both sides. Have to give a lot of credit, and Nico Daws, first NHL win in his first NHL game, right? This was another pretty big matchup. You had the Florida Panthers heading up the East Coast, up north, to take on the Philadelphia Flyers in the city of brotherly love. Both these teams, very, very good hockey teams to start their season this year. A lot of expectations of, maybe making the playoffs, maybe winning the division in their respective divisions in the Atlantic and Metro. Sergei Bobrovsky gets the start, along with Carter Hart for the Flyers. And again, we're seeing Joe Thornton scratched from the Florida Panthers roster. I don't know what's up with that. And something to keep an eye on for the Flyers. We saw Risto back in the lineup, but Ryan Ellis was scratched tonight for the Philadelphia Flyers. So is this just the amount of depth that the Flyers have, or is there serious concerns here? I don't know which of the two it is, but interesting to see the way Vigneault's handling that defense with guys being scratched. Very interesting stuff. Jonathan Huberdeau got the first goal of this one. A goal, his first of the season, a power play goal for the Florida Panthers. That could be quite concerning, seeing Huberdeau getting on the board, and this isn't the last time we see his name come on the board tonight. A big one for the Panthers, just gives them some confidence and momentum early in this one. But that wouldn't be the end of it. There was a decent amount of back and forth scoring from both of these teams. Philadelphia gets back-to-back goals in the second period, and they start to take a little momentum, and you think, all right, Philadelphia's probably going to take this game away. They've got the momentum. And then they said, nah, Owen Tippett late in the final minute of the second period scores a huge goal, his first of the season, and that's where the momentum kind of shifted back for the Florida Panthers, and they never really relinquished it after that. The Philadelphia Flyers definitely gave themselves an opportunity in the third period. Huberdeau got his second of the season, his second of the game. A short-handed goal, probably one that the Flyers would have liked to have had back. Like I said, a lot of pressure from the Flyers, plenty of opportunities. Atkinson kind of muffed one up in the final 2 minutes. He had a great chance in front. But they didn't come through. And the Florida Panthers' third line, which I've talked about a lot early this season, they come up big again. Sam Reinhart's second goal as a Panther from who? Mason Marchment and Anton Lundell. They each pick up another point this season. The empty netter, it ends up being 4-2 for the Florida Panthers. Now there is something to look at here. The Florida Panthers went 1 for 7 on the power play tonight, so I think that's good defense from the Philadelphia Flyers. Not necessarily bad power play from the Panthers, but interesting stat there. The Philadelphia Flyers fall to 2-1-1 on the season. Not terrible. They've picked up a point in 3 of their first 4 games. And the Florida Panthers, man, 5-0 to start this season. The hype around the Panthers right now is real, and they are backing it up with the play on the ice. Great stuff from the Florida Panthers to start the season. And this is where things get interesting on tonight's schedule. We have the Toronto Maple Leafs heading up to Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Penguins have looked good coming out of the gate. They've been a pretty solid team. They haven't lost yet in regulation. They were 2-0-2 coming into this one. And the Toronto Maple Leafs looking a little bit distracted, disinterested. What's the best adjective to describe the start to the season here for the Maple Leafs? Jack Campbell gets the start for the Leafs as Hutchinson started yesterday against the Sharks, and Tristan Jarry getting the start for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Some interesting guys scratched on defense for each of these teams. Toronto scratched Travis Dermott tonight. Not sure what's going on with Dermott. Maybe lingering injury, maybe something with COVID. I'm not sure, but that was interesting to see. And even more head scratching, Chris Letang out of the lineup for the Penguins. Now, we did know Jeff Carter has been out on COVID protocol. Does that have something to do with this Chris Letang thing? We'll probably find out tomorrow or sometime over the next couple of days, but Letang being out of the lineup definitely was a little bit of a head scratcher. But this game got going early, and it was all Pittsburgh, and they never really gave it up. The Pittsburgh Penguins scored back-to-back goals in the first period, and they set the tempo for this game. It's 2-0 Pittsburgh at the end of one, and you could just tell that we talked about Montreal earlier, right? How they gave up that first or second goal early and they just kind of collapsed after that. That was Toronto tonight. And Toronto shouldn't be that team. They should be the team, that's running things, getting things going, scoring power play goals, making the other team kind of play a back and forth game and just finding a way to score more goals than your opponent. They weren't able to do that again tonight. And they end up getting run out of the building in Pittsburgh. This isn't the first time the Penguins have done that yet this season. They did it just a couple weeks ago, or last week, to a pretty similar opponent in the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah, I just mentioned the Chicago Blackhawks, who were 0-5-1 to start their 0-5-1 to start their season, and the Toronto Maple Leafs in the same conversation here in the third week of the NHL season. That's where we're at right now. Back-to-back goals from Pittsburgh in the first. Pittsburgh scores 2 goals in the first 2 minutes of the second period, so it's 4-0. We've only played 23 minutes of hockey in this one. Pittsburgh ends up scoring 4 goals overall in that second period. It's 6-0. And Sheldon Keefe decides, you know what? Maybe we're not going to play Jack Campbell in the third period. He seems a little shell-shocked. Yeah, that's it for Jack Campbell. So Campbell gets pulled after the second period. Pittsburgh scores another early goal in the third period from Brian Boyle, his first of the season, his first in the black and gold with the Pittsburgh Penguins. 52 seconds into the third period. It's a 7-1 win. Toronto goes to 2-1 on the season, and Pittsburgh 3-2 to start the season. They do have those 2 overtime loss blemishes, but they've played well. And the games that they are supposed to quote-unquote win, they have run 2 teams out of the building, Chicago and Toronto. Very interesting start for Pittsburgh. Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith have played well. Mostly Tristan Jarry. Got to give some credit. I was not a fan of Tristan Jarry going into this season. He has looked great and seems to have forgotten a lot of what happened last season, put it behind him, and he's playing some great hockey. So you got to give some love here to the Penguins goaltending. And they win this one 7-1 over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Probably going to be some little bits in fireworks and media stuff going on in Toronto over this week because of this game. Now we head to the later games. We got an 8 o'clock game here between the Nashville Predators and the Winnipeg Jets up in Manitoba. UC Saros gets the start and Connor Hellebuyck gets the start for the Jets. Back-to-back goals in the opening 3 minutes of this game. Winnipeg scores 3 goals in the second period. They end up going up 4-1 or 4-2 in this game. Christian Vesalainen, congratulations, gets his first NHL goal. It's been a really tough start to his NHL career, being up with the Jets, going down to Manitoba, being in the bottom 6 in the NHL. Kind of all over the place. And that's huge to see him get on the board. Maybe it'll build up his confidence. And maybe he'll start to get going, right? So we'll see what happens. Kyle Connor gets his 6th of this season. He's been one of the top scorers in the NHL to start the year. It was a power play goal. Pierre-Luc Dubois scores yet again. He scored in the first period of the Jets preseason game. And now he has currently got his 4th goal of the season. In 4 consecutive games, he's got a 4-game goal scoring streak this season for the Jets. Really good stuff for Dubois and the Winnipeg Jets. You're seeing Connor and Dubois just absolutely go off for the Jets to start this season. Nashville outshot Winnipeg, though, 15-6 in that final frame in the third period, but they come up just short. A 6-4 win for the Winnipeg Jets. Nashville now goes to 1-4 to start the season, so probably a little bit of concern there. In Nashville, John Hines' seat has to be getting a little bit hot right now. But for the Winnipeg Jets, this is a team I've been pretty high on. I was in their power rankings. But now we're starting to see the sample size prove itself. They're 2-1 for this season. They're starting to right the ship. And, it wasn't a great game from either goaltender, but Hellebuyck was good enough for the Jets to win this hockey game. And we're seeing the Jets be a prolific scoring team. And I think that's really important for them as they try to get away from that frame of we're just going to win low-scoring games. They can do more than that. They can score goals and outscore the other team. Maybe the Maple Leafs should take a little playbook from them on that one, right? So we had an interesting one up in St. Louis. This was an interesting game. This was a game that you were seeing similarities of a game we saw a couple nights ago for the St. Louis Blues. So the St. Louis Blues welcome in the LA Kings. Cal Peterson and Jordan Binnington getting the starts. LA scratched Vlad Tkachev as well as Drew Doughty being scratched. What's going on there in LA? Is there maybe some COVID protocol going on? What's going on there? 2 big goals for the St. Louis Blues at the end of the first period. Alex Iafallo gets his first of the season just over halfway into this first frame. But a power play goal and a shorthanded goal from the Jets from Perron and Barbashev, each their 3rd of the season. And that kind of set the tempo for this game. They go up 2-1 after the first period. David Perron is 2nd of the game, 4th of the season in his hometown there in St. Louis. A big deflection goal 45 seconds into the second frame. And things continue for the Blues. Jake Neighbor scoring his first NHL goal, the 2019 first-round pick of the St. Louis Blues. It's a 4-1 game for the Blues. They would keep going. Ryan O'Reilly, the captain, a power play goal. Just 5 minutes later, his 2nd of the season from Schenn and Perron. 5-1 St. Louis. This remind you of the Coyotes game a little bit. James Neal, his first of the season, getting that PTO, getting signed late in training camp. A power play goal for James Neal. Great to see that. And then things get a little bit hairy as it's a 6-1 lead, but then Dustin Brown scores his second of the season, and Carl Grunstrom his first of the year. All of a sudden, it's a 6-3 game. Maybe bringing some flashbacks to last week when Jacob Chikrin and the Arizona Coyotes were in the town, right? After, the timeout by Craig Berube, you were thinking, oh, crap, they're not going to come back, are they, right? We're going to score again, right? Well, the good thing is David Perron, his 5th of the season, his 3rd of the game, it's a hat trick and a power play goal a little over halfway into the 3rd period. The St. Louis Blues win a massive game, a 6-3 finish, a 7-3 finish for the St. Louis Blues. They find a way to win the hockey game. Perron the first star, Krug the second star of this game, and the Blues get their victory, a big one, on the road, at home for the St. Louis Blues. Now, this was a snooze fest if you're a fan of offense. The New York Islanders continue their 13-game road trip to start the season. They were just in Columbus Thursday night. Saturday night, they head out to Arizona to start their Western road trip on this long extended road trip to start the year. The Arizona Coyotes are winless coming into this game. The Islanders only have 1 win coming into this game. You can see how this could be an interesting result, right? Ilya Sorokin and Vejmelka get the starts to start this one. Arizona scratched Antoine Roussel for the 2nd game in a row. What's going on there? Is Antoine Roussel just not performing? Is he injured? Or they just have better players to put out there? I wonder if that's partially the case, but I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into Roussel being scratched, but that's the 2nd game now. I've definitely seen that he is scratched. A low-scoring, low-opportunity game. In the first period, there was 13 shots total. The Arizona Coyotes outshot the Islanders 9-4. But who got the lone goal in that first period? Of course, it was Lou Lamoriello's New York Islanders. Cal Clutterbuck, his 2nd of the season from Adam Pelech. The Islanders go into the first intermission despite being outplayed and over-doubled in the shot column. They come out with a 1-0 lead after 1. The second period was pretty similar. We saw 20 shots by the halfway point of that second period. And the Islanders, you just knew, this is going to be the Islander game where they get that early lead and they just sit on it like a hen sits on an egg and just waits for it to get warm. And then, ding, that's the end of the game. All right, let's go. Moving along. You kind of saw it playing out that way, and the Coyotes fell right into the Islanders' hands tonight. And Andre Tourigny, I'm not sure or Tournier, Andre Tournier, I think that's how you say it. His team just was not able to outcoach the New York Islanders. That's just how it happened. Brock Nelson, a power play goal for the Islanders. You don't see that too often. The Islanders get a PP goal. His 2nd of the season from Bailey and Noah Dobson. At the end of the second period, a big goal for the Islanders, going up 2-0 going into the 3rd. And Ilya Sorokin has looked great for the Islanders in this game. That's now his 3rd game in a row where he has looked good. He played great in Chicago. That's when he really started playing good. The first 2 games, scrap him. But the game in Chicago, he won that for the Islanders. The 2nd game in Columbus, he gave the Islanders a point. And the 3rd game here, he got what he's finally been waiting for. And that's the shutout. Anthony Beauvillier, a backhander in the 3rd period, just over halfway into the 3rd. And the Islanders shut the door on this one. His 2nd of the season from Nelson and Palmieri. A 3-0 New York Islanders lead. And the Islanders win this game. Ilya Sorokin's first shutout of the season. The Islanders' first shutout of the season. 2nd star Clutterbuck and Brock Nelson, who had a 2-point game, a goal, and an assist. And the Islanders escape Arizona with a huge victory. The Arizona Coyotes now go to 0-4-1 on the season on this homestand. Not looking so great for the Islanders. They now have a somewhat respectable record. After starting the season 0-2, they now find themselves 2-2-1. So they've picked up a point in their past 3 games, ladies and gentlemen. And the Islanders are coming back in that Metro Division. Don't count them out just yet. They get 3-0 victory. A big one for the Islanders. And then this is all kind of frosting for the big game tonight. And that's the game that's currently going on right now. At the end of the second period, they just started the second intermission. We have a tie game in Seattle. The Seattle Kraken's first home game in franchise history. They already retired a number, the number 32. Of course, if you don't understand what that is, this is the 32nd franchise in the NHL's history. Number 32 is retired by the Kraken. The Seattle Kraken had plenty of opportunities early in this game. They had the energy, they had the momentum. Philip Grubauer and Thatcher Demko get the starts. Not a real shock there, but that's what we saw. And Grubauer trying to make amends with what was a really tough start to the season. He, in I think 4 games so far, he's played 4 of the 5 games for the Kraken. He has not been good. Under a 900 save percentage. You knew that had to pick up at some point. And in this may be the game, he can do that for the Kraken. Early on, Gord gets a breakaway chance like 15 or 20 seconds into the game, and that might have been a goal. That was a very close opportunity for the Kraken. It was a pretty interesting first period. It was a lot of back and forth action. It was a great game. I mean, a great start to the game. 21 shots. And just to put that in context, that 21 shots in the first period between the two of them is pretty much how much we saw halfway into the game with the Islanders and the Coyotes. So take with that what you will. Shots 12-9 in favor of the Kraken at the end of the first. The Kraken put up another dozen shots in the second, 12-7. They are out shooting the Canucks 24-16. Vince Dunn got the first goal of the season, his first as a Seattle Kraken, a wrist shot with 4 seconds left. 4 seconds left in the first period, and the Kraken take their 1-0 lead. So they get the first goal in Seattle, a big one for the Kraken. The Vancouver Canucks, though, come back in the second period, just over halfway into this game. The Canucks captain, Bo Horvat, his second of the season. Connor Garland picks up his 5th assist of the season. Horvat from Garland ties the game at 1 going into the third period. A great game so far. Both teams are scoreless on the power play. Vancouver 0-3 and Seattle 0-2 on the power play. I believe by the end of this game, somebody will score a power play goal in that third period or in overtime maybe. Somebody will score that overtime or score that power play goal that ends up winning this hockey game. And I'm going to go with the Kraken. I have to go with the Kraken winning this game. So guys, as always, leave in the comment section down below, what do you think of tonight's NHL action? What was the biggest game of the night? What was the shocking game of the night? I think the Ranger game was a pretty interesting one. The Flames and Capitals, those matinee games were really good overall. The Devils and Sabres really showing a lot of promise in their game. I really like that. We saw a couple of, teams trying to flex their muscles in the East. We saw Florida picking up a victory on the road in Philly. A big one between Colorado and Tampa. That was a pretty big game. The Avalanche coming away with that one. And, of course, the first Seattle Kraken home game. So, guys, let me know what you think down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you again next time.